Hello everyone, I would like to welcome you to my channel, Crime Alley Comics, and we are doing episode 43 tonight of the Comic Book Artist Spotlight. You can join me every Wednesday night for another Comic Book Artist Spotlight and learn about your favorite artists and even artists that you may not know anything about. So we will get started tonight. We're talking about Barry Windsor-Smith. Barry Windsor-Smith was born Barry Smith on May the 25th of 1949. He is a British comic book illustrator and painter whose best known work has been produced in the United States. He is known for his work on Marvel Comics' Conan the Barbarian from 1970 to 1973, and for his work on Wolverine, particularly the original Weapon X story arc. Barry was born in Forest Gate, a working class area in the East End of London. He displayed artistic ability at an early age, and his parents supported in pursuing an education in the arts. He attended East Ham Technical College for 3 years, earning degrees in industrial design and illustration. As far as his career, Barry produced his first published works in 1967 and 1968 as a single-page powerhouse pinups of Marvel Comics characters for the terrific and Fantastic Comics. Titles published by, I believe it's pronounced Odham's Press, that included licensed Marvel Comics reprints for the UK market. Following this, he flew to the United States in the summer of 1968 with fellow artist Steve Parkhouse for meetings at Marvel in New York. I sent material first, and based solely upon a pleasant return note from Stan Lee's assistant, Linda Fite, my pal and me were at Marvel's doorstep in a blink of an eye, largely due to his Jack Kirby-ish style. Marvel Comics editor Stan Lee gave him the job of drawing both the cover and story of X-Men number 53, cover dated February of 1969, credited to Barry Smith as he was then known. He drew Marvel's Daredevil number 50 and 52 in March and through May of 1969, a Western short story, Half-Breed, probably the story Outcast, eventually published in Western Gunfighters number 4, February of 1971, and issue number 12 of Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. in May of 1968, both scripted by Parkhouse. Windsor-Smith later called his early art amateur and klutzy, and a less than skillful Kirby imitation, but Stan Lee liked it enough to give him more work. Despite this, Roy Thomas assigned him issue number 66 and 67 of The Avengers, July and August of 1969, after he had returned to the UK. These stories introduced the fictitious indestructible metal alloy adamantium. He continued to work at a distance for Marvel, providing the art for a number of stories in the horror anthology titles Tower of Shadows and Chamber of Darkness. Thomas, a long-time fan of Robert E. Howard's 1930 pulp fiction character Conan the Barbarian, had Windsor-Smith provide art for a Sword of Sorcery story, Star the Slayer, in Chamber of Darkness, number 4, April 1970. Soon after, Thomas offered Windsor-Smith the job as penciler for Marvel's adaptation of Conan, starting with Conan the Barbarian number 1 in October of 1970. In 1971, Windsor-Smith moved to the United States, having been granted a work permit. Comics historian Les Daniels noted that Windsor-Smith's initial efforts were slightly sketchy, but his technique progressed by leaps and bounds. Within a few months, he had achieved a style never seen in comics before. During his run on Conan the Barbarian, Windsor-Smith was involved in writing as well. He and writer Roy Thomas adapted a number of R.E. Howard short stories, the aforementioned The Frost Giant's Daughter in Tower of the Elephant, also Rogues in the House and Red Nails. As well as the art and story contributions, Windsor-Smith provided the covers for most issues. They worked on original adventures and characters based on R.E. Howard's characters, most notably the flame-haired warrior woman Red Sonja, loosely based on a character from one of Howard's non-Conan stories, who has now become a major comic character in her own right. In the Song of Red Sonja in Conan the Barbarian number 24 of March of 1973, Windsor-Smith's last issue of the title. By then, he had worked on 21 of the first 24 issues of the series, missing only issues 17, 18, and 22, which was a reprint of issue number 1. And both he and the title had won a number of awards. Windsor-Smith would later say that the reason he missed those issues was because he had quit the series a number of times as he was dissatisfied with the work and how the comics business worked, rather than the deadline problems Marvel quoted. In 2010, Comic Bulletin ranked Thomas and Windsor-Smith's work on Conan the Barbarian 7th on its list of the top 10 1970s Marvels. Windsor-Smith provided the art for a number of other Marvel comic titles, including the Khazar or Khazar, however you choose to pronounce it, stories in the Astonishing Tales number 3 through 6 in December of 1970 through June of 1971, and number 10 in February of 1972. 3 further issues of the Avengers, number 98 through 100, April through June of 1972, about which he would later remember the nightmare of drawing all those bloody characters that I didn't give 2 pence about. Iron Man number 47 in June of 1972, and Marvel Premiere number 3 and number 4, July and September of 1972, which featured Doctor Strange, both of which were apparently rescripted by Stan Lee. Windsor-Smith was by now becoming disillusioned with the comics industry and the way in which, in his opinion, the writers and artists were being exploited. I need to be free of constraints and policies that were impossible by the dictates of creating entertainment for children. Shortly thereafter, Windsor-Smith left comics for the first time, leaving only a couple of inventory items in the Marvel Comics vaults. Both stories of R.E. Howard's characters, Kull in Exile of Atlantis, Savage Sword of Conan number 3, December of 1974, and Bran Mak Morn in The Worms of the Earth, Savage Sword of Conan number 16, November of 1975. Other than 10 pages of inking of Jack Kirby's pencil work for Captain America's Bicentennial Battle 1976, one-off oversized Marvel Treasury Edition, he produced no more comics until 1983. At this point, he changed his professional surname to Windsor-Smith, adding his mother's surname to his own, and began to pursue a career in fine art. Granted residential status in the United States in 1974, Windsor-Smith, along with his partner Linda Lessman, set up Gorblimey Press, through which he released a small number of limited edition prints of fantasy-based subjects that proved popular. In 1976, Windsor-Smith published the Garblamey Press Catalog, a high-quality index to the work published by Garblamey Press, with full-page reproductions of each piece. Prior to that, in 1975, together with Jeff Jones, Michael Kaluta, and Bernie Wrightson, he was one of the 4 comic book artists turned fine illustrator and painters who formed a small artist loft commune in Manhattan known as the Studio, with the aim of pursuing creative products outside the constraints of comic book commercialism. By 1979, they had produced enough material to issue an art book under the name The Studio, which was published by Dragon's Dream, and the ISBN number was 906-3325819 for that book. Now let's go to the 1980s. Smith designed and drew the fictitious comic strip Mandro for the 1981 Oliver Stone horror film The Hand. In the film, the artwork is used as that of characters John Lansdale, a comic book illustrator played by Michael Caine. Stone explains the hiring of Smith thus: "I'd always been a fan of his. I think I fell in love with his version of Conan before I had ever read the Howard books. He did more for that comic than anyone. Since the cartoonist was drawing a Conan-type character, Barry was the logical choice. Oddly enough, Barry was English, as was Michael, and they both have sandy blonde hair. When they first met, they discovered that they're both about 6'2", and that they both have the same sort of East End wit. The similarity was quite amazing." Windsor-Smith returned to mainstream comic work for Marvel in 1983 with 2 pieces: a short mystical story of love, The Beguiling, and a dark, humorous 2-page black and white story, A Path of Stars, both in Epic Illustrated number 16 in February of 1983. Later, the same year, he produced a short piece in Dave Sim's Swords of Cerberus, number 5, 1983, followed in 1984 by several Marvel superhero stories, an untitled story, though usually referred to as That Night, and an April Fool's story of The Thing in Marvel Fanfare number 15, July of 1984, which he wrote and drew. He illustrated Life Death, a double-sized Storm story in the Uncanny X-Men number 186, October of 1984, and a 4-issue Machine Man limited series, October 1984 through January 1985, for which Windsor-Smith was artist and colorist over Herb Trimpe layouts for the first 3 issues and drew and colored alone for the 4th. Although he would return to the X-Men once a year for the next 3 years, Uncanny X-Men number 198, 205, and 214, his mainstream comic output remained limited throughout the rest of the 1980s, amounting to just 1 issue each of Fantastic Four, number 296 in November of 1986, and Daredevil 236 in November of 1986. 2 issues of Iron Man 232, and that was in July of 1988, and number 243 in June of 1989. 2 pages for DC Comics Heroes Against Hunger, the Benefit Project, and 2 small pieces for the Harvey Award-winning comic anthology A1, published by Atomica Press. In 1987, he returned to his first major success and provided new painted covers for 9 issues of Marvel's Conan reprint titled The Conan Saga, all issues which contained black and white reprints of his original 1970s stories. Then in the 1990s, together with X-Men spin-off Excalibur, number 27, September of 1990, Windsor-Smith's last work for Marvel Comics came with serialized Weapon X feature in Marvel Comics Presents number 72 through 84, 1991. His telling of the origin of the X-Men character Wolverine, which he wrote, drew, inked, colored, and co-lettered. In late 1991, he was approached by Valiant Comics, a new comics publisher founded by former Marvel Comics writer and editor-in-chief Jim Shooter, and asked to act as their creative director and lead artist. Valiant had obtained the licenses for a number of characters originally published in the 1960s and 1970s by Golden Key Comics, Magnus Robot Fighter, for one, Dr. Solar, and Turok Dinosaur Hunter, and added their own original titles to the roster, including Harbinger, XO Man-O-War, Shadow Man, Archer and Armstrong, Eternal Warrior, Bloodshot, Ninjak, and Ray. Windsor-Smith was the chief designer of the Unity crossover storyline for Valiant Comics, and writer and artist for most of the first dozen issues of the title Archer and Armstrong. By focusing on storytelling and innovative marketing practices, such as a tightly knit continuity, crossovers, and send-away issues, Valiant quickly became a considerable success story, selling nearly 2 million copies of premiere issues and rapidly becoming the third largest comic publisher in the U.S., behind the longtime industry leader Marvel and DC Comics. However, in 1993, Windsor-Smith once again found himself in opposition to company employment policies when Valiant decided to adopt the same work-for-hire practices that he had disliked in Marvel Comics, and became dissatisfied with his position in the company. They needed more as a figurehead just as much as a creator. He left Valiant soon after Jim Shooter's departure from the company. Smith has called work-for-hire contracts a legal but unethical instrument designed to rape and plunder young talents of every possible prerogative they would otherwise possess if they had the fortune to work for more scrupulous, morally invested publishers. Since leaving Valiant, Windsor-Smith has worked for a number of companies. For Malibu's Ultraverse line, he co-created Rune with Chris Ulm, including a crossover one-shot comic title, Conan vs. Rune, published by Marvel Comics in 1994 after they took over Malibu. As a result, he once again came up against legal ownership problems, and the Rune stories have remained unreprinted as a result. For Image Comics, he worked on the crossover storyline Wildstorm Rising, drawing and coloring Wildstorm Rising number 1, May of 1995, and all 11 of the covers for the interlinking series. Windsor-Smith later said that he was talked into illustrating Wildstorm Rising and regretted participating in it, stating that in reading the story and illustrating it, he could not understand the motivations of any of the characters, even when he read earlier Wildstorm books featuring the characters. He says he altered the plot in the attempt to improve it and his enthusiasm for it, later learning that writer James Robinson was not pleased with his doing so. In 1995, Windsor-Smith created an oversized anthology series, Barry Windsor-Smith, Storyteller, for Dark Horse Comics, that contained 3 ongoing features: The Paradox Man, a dark science fiction tale; Young Gods, an homage to Jack Kirby's Thor and New Gods series; The Freebooters, a light-hearted action series about an aging Conan-like character grown older and heavier and now running a tavern. He canceled Storyteller after 9 issues, even though a 10th issue had been completed. Since then, Fantagraphics Books has issued hardcover collections of Young Gods and The Freebooters. Each of these hardcover volumes include supplemental features, essays, and previously unseen art. Fantagraphics has published Windsor-Smith's Adastra in Africa, a hardcover starring a character from Young Gods in a story originally intended to be published as Life Death Number 3 for Marvel's X-Men, with the character Storm. In 1999, Fantagraphics published 2 volumes of Barry Windsor-Smith's Opus, a hardcover art book featuring Windsor-Smith's work from throughout his career, including an autobiographical story, Time Rise, which featured details of his experience with seemingly paranormal phenomena. So now in the 2000s, Windsor-Smith created a story called UFO POV, an 11-page story in Streetwise July of 2000, a trade paperback anthology published by Two Morrows Publishing, which is TWO and then Morrows Publishing. In 2000 and 2001, he also produced cover art for a number of Marvel titles, including Grant Morrison's New X-Men, and drew 5 pages of Wolverine, number 166, September of 2001. A Weapon X tie-in written by Frank Terry in January of 2004. Fantagraphics Books published Windsor-Smith's Young Gods and Friends, a hardcover collecting material from Windsor-Smith's Storyteller alone with new material. November of 2005 saw a follow-up hardcover title, The Freebooters, again collecting material from Barry Windsor-Smith's Storyteller with new material. A planned 3rd and final volume collecting the Paradox Man serial has not yet been released. In January of 2006, Windsor-Smith announced on the website Comic Book Galaxy that he was in negotiations to publish a graphic novel for Marvel Comics starring The Thing. He was working on a Superman story in 1999 that has not yet seen print. He has produced no further work in mainstream comics since that announcement, and nothing has been produced by Gorblimey Press since the print Libero Mano in 1993. And I'm assuming that means monsters, because next to it in italics it says monsters. A graphic novel which explores the life and time of 2 disparate American families faithfully connected by an abandoned Nazi project in genetic engineering that has been covertly revived by the U.S. government and has been in the works since the 1980s and is slated for release in 2021 by Fantagraphics Publishing. So now, tell you about some awards that he has won. In 1970, he won the Academy of Comic Book Art Shazam Award. Best Individual Story, Lair of the Beast Men by Roy Thomas and Barry Smith from Conan the Barbarian number 2. And that was just a nomination. He did not win that one. 1971, Academy of Comic Book Arts Awards Best Continuing Feature, Conan the Barbarian, and he was the winner. 1971, Academy of Comic Book Arts Awards Best Individual Story, Devil Wings over Shadazar by Roy Thomas and Barry Smith from Conan the Barbarian number 6, and Tower of the Elephant by Roy Thomas and Barry Smith from Conan the Barbarian number 4. And those were nominations. He did not win those. 1972, Academy of Comic Book Arts Awards Best Individual Story Dramatic, The Black Hound of Vengeance by Roy Thomas and Barry Smith from Conan the Barbarian number 20. That was a nomination as well. In 1973, they were nominated for the Academy of Comic Book Arts Awards Best Continuous Feature for Conan the Barbarian. And then he was the winner in 1973 of the Academy of Comic Book Arts Awards Best Individual Story Dramatic for Song of Red Sonja by Roy Thomas and Barry Smith from Conan the Barbarian number 24. Also in 1973, he won the, I think it's Goth Award for the Favorite Pro Artist. 1973 British Fantasy Society Awards Best Comic, Conan the Barbarian, and he was the winner. In 1974, he was nominated again for the Academy of Comic Book Arts Awards Best Individual Story Dramatic, Red Nails by Roy Thomas and Barry Smith. And that was from Savage Tales number 1 through 3. Another nomination in 1974, the Shazam Awards for Superior Achievement by an Individual. And then another in 1974 was the British Fantasy Society Awards Best Comic, Conan the Barbarian, and he was the winner. In 1975, he won the Inkpot Award. In 1975, he also won British Fantasy Society Awards Best Comic, The Savage Sword of Conan. And he won in 1976 the British Fantasy Society Awards Best Comic, The Savage Sword of Conan again. In 1977, he was nominated for the Eagle Award for Favorite Comic Book Artist. 1985, he was nominated for the Hackster Awards Best Long Story, Machine Man. 1990, let's see, he was nominated for Gem Award for Outstanding Service and Product Best Comic under $3. That was Deathmate Prologue. That was the comic book. 1993, well, it doesn't say whether he won or not, but the UK Comic Art Awards Best New Feature, Archer and Armstrong. But it doesn't say if he was just nominated or if he won it. 1997, Comics Buyer's Guide Favorite Colorist, and he was nominated for that one. He was also nominated in 1997 for the Harvey Award Best New Series, Barry Windsor-Smith Storyteller. 1998, Comic Buyer's Guide Fan Award Favorite Colorist. That was a nomination. And then in 2008, he won the Eisner Awards Hall of Fame. Now, as for the comics that he has done work on, Batman 3D graphic novel, one-page pinup in 1990, Heroes Against Hunger number 1, 1986, Sandman Special number 1, one-page pinup, 1991, Superman Special number 1, one-page pinup in 1992. And that's pretty much all he did as far as what this says for DC Comics. Now for Marvel Comics. Astonishing Tales, Kazar number 3 through 6 and number 10 in 1971. Avengers number 66, 67, 98 through 100, 1969 through 1972. Chamber of Darkness number 3 and 4 in 1970. Conan the Barbarian number 1 through 16 and number 19 through 24, 1970 through 1973. Conan vs. Rune number 1. I think that's how that's pronounced. It's how it's spelled anyway. That was in 1995. Daredevil number 50 through 52 and number 236, 1969 through 1986. Epic Illustrated number 7, 16, 19, and 34 in 1981 through 1986. Excalibur number 27, 1990. Fantastic Four number 296, among other artists, in 1986. Iron Man number 47, 232, 243, 1972 to 1989. Machine Man miniseries 1 through 4, 1984 through 1985. Marvel Comics presents Weapon X number 72 through number 84, 1991. Marvel Fanfare The Thing number 15, 1984. Marvel premieres Doctor Strange number 3 and 4, 1972. Marvel Treasury Special featuring Captain America's Bicentennial Battles. He was the co-inker, and that was in 1976. Monsters on the Prowl number 9, 1971. Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. number 12, 1969. Savage Sword of Conan number 3 and number 16, 1974 through 1976. Savage Tales Conan number 1 through 4, 1971 through 1974. Tower of Shadows number 3, 5, and 7 in 1970. Uncanny X-Men number 53, 186, 198, 205, 214, and that was from 1969 through 1987. Let's see. Oh, also Western Gunfighters number 4, 1971, and Wolverine number 166 in 2001. And for Valiant Comics, Archer and Armstrong number 0, 1 through 6, 8, and 10 through 12. That's 1992 to 1993. Eternal Warrior number 1, 2 pages only, issues 6 through 8, 1992 and 1993. Solar Man of the Atom number 1 through 10, 1991 through 1992. Unity number 0 and number 1 in 1992. And XO Man of War number 1, 1992. I think I have that book. I must not have had it put down that Barry Windsor-Smith was the artist for that one or something, because I didn't pull that one out. Other publishers: Barry Windsor-Smith, Storyteller number 1 through 9 for Dark Horse Comics in 1996-1997. Rune number 0 and 1 through 6, Giant Size number 1 also. That was for Malibu Comics, 1994 through 1995. Wildstorm Rising number 1. That's for Image Comics in 1995. Okay, so that's what we have for Barry Windsor-Smith. You know, I only found a few books that I have, that I know that I have anyway. I mean, in my spreadsheets, I still have a lot of books that doesn't have the artist written down with it, so that I know who the artist is. But I also have several of my independent comics that he may have done the artwork on, because I know I have some of the books that I just read off, but they're not in my spreadsheet yet because I haven't had a chance to get around to putting them in there. So I probably have some other books, but I wasn't able to pull that all together before I had to get this done. And I would like to apologize. I was in my last video, I said I was going to try to get a haul video out between last week's Wednesday night video and this week's, and that never happened. So I got really busy, and so hopefully I can get it out after this video. But anyway, so let me show you the books that I do have. First one up is from Valiant Comics, and it is Archer and Armstrong number 11. And I do not, oh yeah, right down here at the bottom, if I can get this up here for you to see, there is Barry Windsor-Smith's initials. And a lot of times you'll see his initials and not his signature on books. This one is Cull by Marvel Comics, number 9. And this one here, I really like this cover. It's Daredevil, the Man Without Fear, number 217. And that's the only ones I had pulled to show you guys for tonight. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to dig deeper and try to find some more. But anyway, I've showed several other books throughout this video, so hopefully that gives you a good idea. He does have a very unique art style, and his use of colors and his shadowing is very different too, because you notice a lot of light and dark. You know, where you see a lot of the light, it's really light, and where you see some of the dark, it's really dark. It's just an interesting contrast compared to the way some other artists do their shadowing and so on. I just think he's a really great artist though. So I hope you enjoyed this. I will, like I said, do my best to get another video up between now and next week when we do episode 44 of the Comic Book Artist Spotlight. I do have some books to show, and hopefully I'll get some time to get that video together. Also, when I do the haul video, I'll also do an update on my contest. So if you have not joined my 600 subscriber contest, please do. And also, if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, I would appreciate it if you would click the subscribe button. Click the bell next to that so that you can get notified when I make other content. And I would appreciate it if you'd hit the like button on this video, because that helps my channel to get spread around the YouTube universe. So with that, I'll let you guys go. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. I hope you've enjoyed this, and as always, if you have any information that I did not share, I would appreciate it if you would leave comments below and share your insights and information. And I've never met Barry Windsor-Smith, so if you've ever met him, I'm sure the community would appreciate hearing your experiences meeting him. And with that, we will end this video. Everybody have a great week. God bless, and we will see you all next video.